Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Yavanam yatha bhavo yarubaguna karmaka yathaiva tattva vijnanam astute madanigra. Yavanam yatha bhavo yarubaguna karmaka yathaiva tattva vijnanam astute madanigra. Yavan, as I am in my eternal form.
As I am in my eternal form.
Aham,
Aham,
I, Yata, in whichever manner.
whichever manner.
Bhava, transcendental existence. Yat,
Yat,
whatever.
whatever.
Rupa, various forms and colors.
Various forms and colors.
Guna, qualities.
Qualities.
Karmaka, activities. Tatayeva,
Tatayeva,
exactly so.
exactly so.
Tattva vijnana,
Tattva vijnanam,
factual realization.
factual realization.
Astu,
Astu,
let there be.
let there be.
Te, your. Mat, mine. Anugrahat,
Anugrahat,
by causeless mercy.
causeless mercy.
By my causeless mercy, be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. Papa Bashir Papa. The transcendental personal forms of the Lord are a mystery, and the symptoms of these forms, which are absolutely different from anything made of mundane elements, are also mysterious. The innumerable forms of the Lord, such as Sham Sundar, Narayan, Rama, and Gaura Sundar, the colors of these forms, white, red, yellow, cloud like Sham, and others, his qualities as the responsive personality of Godhead to pure devotees, and as impersonal Brahman to dry speculators. His uncommon activities, like lifting Govardhan Hill, marrying more than 16,000 queens at the Warka, and entering the rasa dance with the damsels of Braja, expanding himself in as many forms as there were damsels in the dance. These and innumerable other uncommon acts and attributes are all mysterious. One aspect of which is presented in the scientific knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is read and adored all over the world by all classes of scholars, with as many interpretations as there are empiric philosophies. The truth of these mysteries are revealed to Brahma by a descending process, without the help of the ascending one. His mercy descends to a devotee like Brahma, and through Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyas, and from Vyasadeva to Sukadeva, and so on in the bona fide chain of the cyclic succession. We cannot discover the mysteries of the Lord by our mundane endeavors. They are only revealed by His grace to the proper devotees. These mysteries are gradually disclosed to the various grades of devotees in proportion to the gradual development of their service attitude. In other words, impersonalists who depend upon the strength of their full fund of knowledge and morbid speculative habits, without submission and service in the forms of hearing, chanting, and others mentioned above, cannot penetrate into the mysterious regions of transcendence, where the supreme truth is a transcendental person, free from all tinges of material elements. Discovering the mystery of the Lord eliminates the impersonal feature realized by Discovering the mystery of the Lord eliminates the impersonal feature realized by common spirituals who are merely trying to enter the spiritual region from the mundane plane. Om Ajnanatavanandasya Jnanashalataya Chakshurumritamena Tasma Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manamishtam Savitam Yenam Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dati Swamanandam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So these are quotations given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, taken from Srimad Bhagavatam. So today I thought what we'll do is try and study the practical aspect of the Lord's appearance, of course in relationship with the actual religious and philosophical and the, if you like, in relationship to the general quest for God which goes on in this material world. So, of course, the claim of the Krishna conscious movement is that the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya is the highest philosophy. There is no other higher philosophy than that which was preached by Lord Chaitanya and his followers. This is a very momentous claim and has to be substantiated by scientific study. So, therefore, just like when we were debating last night on the different conflicting philosophies between atheism and theism, then I thought that we could study also Lord Chaitanya in that light. So, it's natural that people want to approach the absolute truth, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur very nicely says, that the phenomenon of attraction is often found to tempt sentient beings to enjoy the variegated situation which is opposed to undifferentiated monism. People are so much apt to indulge in transitory speculation, even when they are to educate themselves on a situation which lies beyond their experience and jurisdiction. So the tendency of everyone in the material world is to speculate about God. That's a natural tendency. It's something which cannot be separated. Even when we use the word atheist, it's also a worship of God, because it's a denial of God. Denial of God is also another God-conscious activity. Just like Kamsa was Krishna conscious in denial. So you can also be God-conscious in denial. Why do people have to deny God? Because he's there. Simple as that. If God wasn't there, we wouldn't have to deny him. Just like if you have a disease and you have to deny it. Well, why do you have to deny it? Because you've got it. It's there. You're trying to deny it to be happy. But the fact of the matter, the thing is there. If you want to deny God, The only reason you have to deny God is because he's unavoidable. God is unavoidable in every aspect of life, because ultimately what is the meaning of God? Of course, in Greek, the word could be translated into controller, that which controls. So let's take the idea of God as a controller. So anything which is being controlled means that there is some higher authority. In other words, it's illogical to say that control or order comes out of disorder. You can't, it doesn't make sense to say that order. If there's some order in creation, that means someone ordered it, isn't it? Someone ordered it. If there's any intelligence in the universe, even if it's only a small bit, that means someone intelligent put it there. You see? Just like if there's any design in this creation, it means there has to be a designer of some sort. Whether you say it's a human being, whether you say it's a void energy that just accidentally does things, whether you say it's just some sort of chance happening. So the point is that anyone with logic intelligence, of course animals cannot be logical, so we don't expect animals to understand God. But generally the human being, what is the meaning of the human being is that he has power of discrimination. He can discriminate between something which is intelligent and something which is not intelligent. So the fact that it takes big intelligence to study the universe means the universe must be intelligent, isn't it? It's not every old dimbo who understands physics, who understands nuclear science, who understands aerodynamics. And therefore we can understand that the people who are actually studying nuclear physics, nuclear science, who are studying quantum mechanics, who are studying all of these things, they're intelligent. Now the fact that they're intelligent means that it's intelligent people who study those things. What does that tell you? It tells you that the thing they're studying must be very intelligent. Because in order to study it, you need to be intelligent. Isn't it? So if nature itself is extremely complex, it means you need a complex brain to study it, which means you need to be intelligent. So in that way we can understand that the cosmic manifestation is supremely complex. It's supremely complex. And therefore, when we talk about religion, we have to actually talk about the scientific study of God. Religion is not a sentimental adjustment of the mind, as is given by modern dictionaries, that religion is a type of faith. There is nothing to do with faith in religion, in the real sense. In the beginning, there may be a little faith required because there's no intelligence. You see? When there's no intelligence, you require faith. Just like if I go to a professor in the beginning of my school days, I need to have faith in what he's saying because I don't know what he's saying. But once I actually know what he's saying, my faith disappears. It becomes conviction. So therefore, we actually challenge that in Krishna consciousness, you don't require any faith. It's not required. In the neophyte state, you do require faith. You do require faith. That's why, because in the neophyte state, one does not have realization. That realization of the absolute truth is not there because in the beginning stages of spiritual life, one is very simple. And these simple activities that we've been doing in the material world has immersed us in an ocean of ignorance. This ocean of ignorance, of course, is manifested in our particular material body, in our material consciousness. So this process, so basically when we look into philosophy, we understand that in order to understand philosophy, in order to study God, we require outside help. We require outside help. This is the first basic principle of studying any philosophy. You go to a philosopher. Just like when Prabhupada met Professor Tchaikovsky, I think. How do you pronounce his name? Kutowski. Huh? Kutowski. He met Professor Kutowski. And Prabhupada basically, of course this guy was a very intelligent, mundane professor, atheist. So Prabhupada immediately pointed out something extremely valid to the professor. He said that you are following Lenin and I am following Krishna. What is the difference? So when the atheists challenge, they are still following someone. You will find that everyone is following someone. This fellow is a big atheist, but he's following Lenin. We are following Krishna. The point of it is that everyone has to have outside help. Everyone has to have shelter of some form or other. That shelter may come in the form of taking shelter of some other philosopher. It may come in the form of taking shelter of some mundane leader. It may come in the form of taking shelter of some peers or higher authority of some kind. But the basic principle of all knowledge is that one takes some kind of shelter. So whether it's Lenin's philosophy or capitalism or whether it's spiritualism, it's all different types of shelter. So when we say, when someone says that I don't believe in taking shelter of God, yes, they may not believe in taking shelter of God, but they have taken shelter of something else. You see? They have taken shelter. They may have substituted God with taking shelter in capitalism, greediness. They may have taken shelter of socialism. They may have taken shelter in sex life. They may have taken shelter in anything. But one thing will be sure, that the dharma of the soul, or the function of the soul, is always to take shelter. So the basic principle of spiritual life is the first principle which Lord Chaitanya taught, which was very nicely expressed by Lord Chaitanya when he was coming in first association of his spiritual master. The first thing which Lord Chaitanya said about his spiritual master, he said, my spiritual master says that I am a great fool. That I am a great fool. And Lord Chaitanya was explaining that my spiritual master taught me such a great fool, that he was saying that you are such a fool, you should just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now Lord Chaitanya was one of the greatest philosophers of his time. He defeated the greatest scholars, such as the Digvijaya. He defeated many great philosophers. And Lord Chaitanya, of course, was an incarnation of the Supreme is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's no question of the vastness of his knowledge. But at the same time, this is the wonderful contribution of the incarnation of Lord Chaitanya, that he came to show from the practical demonstration of being a devotee that what is the highest knowledge. The highest knowledge is actually to surrender. Now, in the material world, that science is not understood, because in the material world, the very nature of this material world is everyone is competing with each other to gain something. We are all in competition with each other. We may individually be in competition, or we may be as a group in competition. We may be in various shapes and forms, but all of us are in competition with each other in order to lord it over the material energy, in order to exploit matter. So therefore, when it comes to knowledge, then also there is always competition. You will find that in the material world there is constant change, there is constant shifting of the goalposts in order for one to pursue different types of knowledge. In other words, there is no knowledge in the material world. There is no knowledge, because what we see is really just different types of speculations being constantly changed. So this is actually something which was already dealt with thousands of years ago. Of course now, more and more, all science is doing really is accumulating so many speculations and then throwing them out because they found better ones. And then 10 years down the road, they throw out that lot and they bring in some new ones. So this has been going on since the beginning of so-called scientific pursuit. So therefore, in Vedic culture, this was already dealt with, because if one studies intelligently, one can understand that there are certain things about the body which do not allow it to have knowledge. The body is not a very good instrument for knowledge. Because in order for you to gain knowledge, in other words, first of all, if you understand the principle that we are born into ignorance. If people cannot understand that principle that we are born into ignorance, then they cannot even begin the path of knowledge. So first of all, if we understand, every one of us are born into ignorance. So therefore, any knowledge that we have is something which we got from outside. That's why we call it information. It comes in and then it formates. Isn't it? It's not outformation, it's information. It's coming in. So that thing which is coming into us, that is called information. But if we are to depend on that knowledge, then we have to understand that the instruments that are bringing it in, are they perfect? In other words, if we say knowledge can be received by hearing, is our hearing perfect? Is our seeing perfect? Is our association perfect? So therefore this verse is given. Brahma pramada vipralipsa karana patava arsha vigna vakye nahi dosha isa. Mistakes, illusion, cheating, and defective perceptions are there in the material world. That everyone in the material world, because they are born into a material body, automatically are in a disease condition. Disease condition means that my senses are imperfect. Because my senses are imperfect, why are they imperfect? Because they're limited. My senses are limited, therefore I have a tendency to commit mistakes, therefore I have a tendency to be illusioned, therefore I have a tendency to cheat. So this tendency to commit mistakes, to be illusioned, this cheating propensity is caused by defective perception. So therefore, that how can you know that's true? You can know it's true because everyone gains their knowledge by hearing. The reason you have to hear is because you don't already have knowledge. You see? Why do you have to hear knowledge from anywhere? So in other words, let's forget where we're hearing our knowledge from. But at least we should understand the fact that I have to hear knowledge means it's because I don't have it. So knowledge is something which is not automatically accessible. It is something which has to come from help, from outside. Therefore, one can conclude that everyone is completely dependent on outside help. Now, the next question is that who are you going to take help from? Isn't it? Because if you agree with the factor that you need help, then you have to decide, well, who am I going to take help from? So naturally, in our childhood, we take help from teachers. Those teachers took help from their teachers, who took help from their teachers, who took help from their teachers. So any source of knowledge can be traced back to an original source. And therefore, the process of getting spiritual knowledge and the process of getting material knowledge are exactly the same. The only difference is the source. So that's why in this verse the Supreme Personality of Godhead is explaining that as it says here, by my causeless mercy be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities and pastimes. So therefore knowledge has to come from God. Knowledge has to come from God. Why does knowledge have to come from God? Yes, because God is the source of everything, but also because we should understand that God is the only one who is perfect. He's the only one who's perfect in the absolute sense. Our perfection in the material world does not exist. But what we can say is, relatively speaking, I'm better than him. Isn't it? The only thing any mundane scientist, any mundane philosopher can say, I'm better than the other guy. That's the only claim to fame that he has. He can't say that he's better than anyone outside of this planet, because we have no reference to that. So all he can do is say, one scientist can outdo another scientist, can outdo another scientist, can. So this is the way that mundane knowledge goes on. So it's not knowledge. It's just different ignorant people being a little bit better than each other. That's all that so-called knowledge is in the material world. Therefore, the scientists of the Vedic age did not take much, did not take much heed to speculation. As a matter of fact, speculation is a very unscientific way of studying truth. Because if something is defective, what's the use in using it? You see, if something is intrinsically defective, then there's no use in using it. So therefore, in order to enlighten, this Vedic process is completely different. It is not an ascending process, it is a descending process. And therefore, this is why this knowledge is directly given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either directly in his own form or through his agents. And therefore Krishna is saying, by my causeless mercy, be enlightened in truth. So be enlightened in truth about my personality. So this is the one thing which is the most important thing to understand in this universe. The most important thing to understand in the universe is who created it. There can't be anything more important than that. Because unless you understand who created the universe, you'll never understand the universe. You see? You must understand who created it. Most materialists want to know why it's created or how it's... They don't even want to know why it's created. They want to know how it's created. They want to know how it's created because they want to subjugate the material energy under their exploitive idea. In other words, they want to bring material energy under their measuring jurisdiction. They want to be able to measure it, to quantify it, to qualify it, and to utilize it for their particular interest. But as Krishna says, that this material energy, that this is mama maya duratya, it is my energy. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate characha itunanena kuntaya jagati parivartita. This maya dakshena, this material energy is working under my direction, under his direction. Therefore, to understand material energy is impossible without the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Supreme Lord comes in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya comes in the Kali Yuga because Krishna has already appeared 5,000 years ago and has demonstrated his personality. But still, it is very, very difficult for the tiny living entities to understand Krishna. Therefore, in order to explain Krishna, Krishna comes himself again. So this is the wonderful nature of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, is that this appearance of Lord Chaitanya is that he comes, Krishna has come himself in order to explain himself. So the Lord has come as the devotee. Previously, he has come as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the supreme autocratic dominator of the creation. Therefore, when Krishna comes into the material world, he performs amazing pastimes, which in themselves are even more bewildering to the conditioned souls. So as it says here, the innumerable forms of the Lord, such as Shyam Sundar, Narayan, Rama, and Gaura Sundar, the color of these forms, his qualities as the responsive personality of Godhead to pure devotees, and as impersonal Brahman to dried speculators. His uncommon activities like lifting Govardhan Hill, marrying more than 16,000 queens at Dwarka, and entering the rasa dance with the damsels of Braja, expanding himself in as many forms as there were damsels in the dance. These and innumerable other uncommon acts and attributes are all mysterious. Now, because they're mysterious, if something is a mystery, then people cannot take proper appreciation of that. People cannot actually get proper benefit from that. So therefore, one has to remove this mystery. So Lord Chaitanya has come to give the formula or the process of removing this mystical curtain. As it says in the Bhagavatam, that the Lord is covered by a mystical curtain. Just like sometimes the example is that in a theater there may be so many things on the stage, but when the curtain is there you can't see any of the things on the stage. As soon as the curtain is removed, then everything becomes wonderfully displayed. So similarly, this material energy is a great curtain of Maya. This curtain, actually, of course, the example is used like the clouds. The clouds are like a curtain of the sun. They keep the sun hidden. And therefore, until the clouds are removed, one can not actually get benefit from the sun. You can get some benefit from the sun, just like now, I don't know, it's still cloudy, but there's some benefit. But the real benefit, all the benefit of the sun comes when the clouds are removed. Similarly, the Supreme Personality Godhead is always there, and his energies are always there, and we are always there. But unfortunately, the relationship between us and Krishna is not always there. So what is stopping that relationship is this cloud of Maya. This cloud of Maya, this fogginess in the brain. We all have a big fog going on in our head. You can see it every time you wake up, how foggy it is. And you're almost like trying to get through this fog. But just like if you're in a great ocean with a big fog, you need outside help. You need help. So this help comes in the form of Lord Chaitanya. He has descended, and he has not only descended, but he has brought with him all of his paraphernalia, all of his devotees. They have also come. And he has come down to actually simply to do one thing, and that is to bestow his causeless mercy. Lord Chaitanya is the incarnation of causeless mercy. So, what is that causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya? Now, in study of Lord Chaitanya, one can see that Lord Chaitanya came and, okay, he did some chanting and dancing, he did some wonderful pastimes, and but what is the real causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya? The real mercy of Lord Chaitanya is that he brought what no other incarnation has brought. There are many incarnations of God that have come. There are many philosophers that have come. There are many prophets. There are many great personalities who have come to this world. But the difference is that Lord Chaitanya brought one thing which they have not brought. And that thing which Lord Chaitanya brought, you can see it by studying all of the different philosophies on this planet. You will find that Lord Chaitanya came to reveal one thing, and that is that he came to give everyone a taste of rasa. You see, this science of rasa has never before been properly studied in philosophy. So what is rasa? This rasa is, in a material sense, we can try to study it as a certain type of taste. There's a certain type of taste. Now, if you study this factor of taste, you will find that all of the activities of the material world are done in order to give us different types of taste. Ultimately, if we see that everything we do it for taste. We do it for taste. Now, taste may come in the form of eating a gulab jamun, or it may come in the form of some type of exciting activity. It may come in the form of different types of sense gratification. But the highest taste which we get in the material world is actually sex life. Sex life is the highest taste. And therefore, unless religion deals with this principle of sex life, it can never succeed. You see? If you look at all religions, they all leave it alone. They leave sex life alone, because I remember one time the Pope was asked, can you have sex in heaven? He didn't know what to say. I mean, what do you say? Well, it's not really the place for sex, is it? That's not really an answer, because the principle of sex life is what makes the whole creation go on. You can see that if there's one principle why people don't take to spiritual life, it's sex life. You see? Most religions are trying to preach some sort of morality. They're trying to bring people to some sort of moral principle, and that moral principle is that you should be good, you shouldn't cheat, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. So mostly, if you find that most religions are negative, they're negative, and therefore the following of a religion, so the following of a religion is generally how good you are at abstaining from things, isn't it? Generally, if you're following a religion, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't engage in illicit sex, you don't this, you don't that, you don't that. And if you study all the different types of religion, people are admired within the religion as to how good they are at abstaining from things. You know, the yogi sitting in the mountain, doesn't look at anything, doesn't breathe, doesn't eat, doesn't sleep. The idea of the Christian saints, they were all living in caves, fasted and starved themselves to death. So generally, people's idea of religion is always that you've got to go away and do some forms of what do you call abstaining. I think Radha Govinda is having some rasa with us today. Appearing and disappearing and reappearing. Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai. So this idea of religion is always very unpalatable for most people, because it's seen as a sort of depriving oneself of various kind of necessities, the necessities of life. And therefore there's always this idea of all these shrunken monks and nuns walking through cloisters, sort of hanging on for their dear life, skin and bone, living in cotton sacks, and awakening to cold porridge in the morning and cold showers. And the general idea is that the more you can follow these kind of deprivation, isn't it? These sort of deprivations, then the more you are spiritually advanced. You know, if you, that's why even in our own philosophy we look towards renunciates and abstainers and people who are in control of their senses, who don't get agitated when they are on the situations that we get agitated in. So this is always the idea. But this type of understanding of religion is actually a negative idea, because the whole idea of religion is that religion means the relationship between the living entity and God. Therefore it should be full of the highest happiness. Susukham, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, that this knowledge is the king of all Raja Vidya Raja Guriyam, Bhavijam Mutam Uttamam. It is the king of all education. It is the king of all education. It is the greatest science of education because it gives direct perception of the self through realization. This direct perception of the self through realization. So this perception of the self and realization, what is that realization? That realization, of course, is called Vijnana. There are two things which are there in Vedic literature. One is Jnana, but the other one is Vijnana. Vijnana means the practical realization of the knowledge of Vedic literature. So this practical realization, it gives direct realization of the self. It gives direct perception of the self. It is joyful. Joyful because God is the most important principle of God. The most important principle of God is at least he should be happy, isn't it? If God is not happy, then why did you bother going there? It's like if someone was performing all these austerities all your life, you finally got to the pearly gates, and you open the gates and there's God saying, oh, I feel miserable today. You see? So, therefore, this study of God has to be the study of the pleasure potency of God. You see? This has to be the study of the pleasure potency. There is no other potency of God that is as attractive. Philosophy about God, knowing how God creates universes or destroys universes, how he maintains universes, it's fine, it's good, it's nice. You know, there's billions of universes, they're all floating in space. Then the Lord manifests huge varieties within each of those universes, and then he impregnates billions and trillions of living entities, and we're one of those little living entities impregnated into this huge, vast cosmos. And here we are struggling away with our mind, with our senses, with our mortgages, with our problems, with our rent. So all of it may be very wonderful to hear about, as in most religions to hear about God is great. Yes, God is great. But the thing is that just simply studying God's greatness has never made anyone happy. It doesn't make you happy to know that someone is very great. It just makes you scared because you realize how small you are. So in many ways it may bring about some sort of awe and veneration. It may bring this folding of the hands and the praying to God. Generally, even the study of the greatness of God tends to actually make you then think to yourself, well, if he's so great, he can do a few favors for me. Isn't it? You tend to actually then look at God in the idea that, okay, well, God's very great. Well, that's really good to know, because now I can give him my whole shopping list of all the things that I haven't been able to gain in this material world. Now, let God gain them for me, and then I'll just hang around and wait till he gives them to me. So then most people's idea of worshipping God is in a cultivar, in cheating idea. Because generally the religions are where man has struggled in the material world to try to fulfill his desires, wasn't very successful, so then come along to God and get him to do it instead. That's all really religion is. It's just another extension of selfishness. We go to God, God, give us our daily bread, as if God's a baker. The idea that God should be baking loads of bread seems to be a very acceptable principle in some religion. So therefore, what has Lord Chaitanya brought? Lord Chaitanya has brought a very different type of religion. A very different type of religion, because that Dharma, which the Dharma of Krishna consciousness, is that Lord Chaitanya has come to reveal a different way of worshipping God. A different way of worshipping God. What is that different way of worshipping God? That way of worshipping God which Lord Chaitanya has brought is that God himself becomes dependent on your love. That is very, very difficult to understand. Of course, we can understand that God is not dependent. He is not dependent on anything. But at the same time, because there exists an individual relationship between us and God, that relationship is manifested in different types of rasa. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has come to reveal the mysteries and depth of devotional service. So he has come in the mood of Srimati Radharani. He has come in the mood because the highest manifestation of this principle of rasa is the manifestation of Mahabhav. Mahabhav is the relationship between Radha and the attachment or the love of Radha for Krishna. And therefore, within this context, Lord Chaitanya has come in the mood of Srimati Radharani, because he wants to inundate the entire planet with this process of pure, unadulterated love for Krishna. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya is expounding this sciences through his devotees, the 6 Goswamis. And we see that Srila Rupa Goswami is explaining this power or this potency of Krishna consciousness. So he explains that there are the characteristics of this pure devotion. What is the characteristic of this pure devotion? One, pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. So that is one of the principles of devotional service, is that it automatically relieves one from the causes of distress. You see? That is, in a sense, what everyone is looking for. The only thing that people really want is freedom from distress. People are not really interested in God. They're not really interested in religion. The reason people are not interested in God is because that to them God does not exist. You can't be interested in something which doesn't exist. Now you can say, well, God might exist, or you can say, I have faith that God does exist. But at this very moment in time, for us, God is not something that we actually have much interest in. We can say that we would like to have interest in God. We can say that one day we're going to have interest in God. We can say many things. But the actual reality is we are interested in ourselves. And therefore, the real attachment that one has to any religion is the benefit one gets from it. So therefore, that is why Lord Chaitanya has come to give immediate results. Just like in most religions, there's this idea that if you are good, if you perform pious activities and all of these other things, that at the time of death, because you've been very, very good, you are going to go to heaven. But it's a bit risky waiting until you die, isn't it? Because if it didn't quite work, you may not go to heaven. So therefore, all of the religions that you see, they're always something you're going to gain in an afterlife. generally. Whereas Krishna consciousness brings immediate results. We can see that practically, that most of us are coming from sinful backgrounds, but because of contact with Krishna consciousness, immediately we are able to give up intoxication. Immediately we are able to give up meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, television, radio, newspapers, even newspapers. Well, not all of us, but at least we should give up newspapers. So the thing is that because there is immediate relief in Krishna consciousness, there is immediate relief. Now, there's immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. What are the causes of material distress? That one has to understand. What are the causes of material distress? Who can answer that one? What are they called? They're called kleshas. Kleshas. There's what do we call it? Adhyatmika klesha, adhibhautika klesha, adhidevika klesha. Now, all of these kleshas are inflicted upon us. Why? They're inflicted upon us because of our sinful activities. The reason that we suffer mental distress is because we have been bad boys. The reason we suffer bodily distress is because we've been bad girls. The reason we suffer from other living entities is because we have done some bad activities. So all of these various types of distress are different reactions from past activities. You see, any situation we're in right now is because of something we did in the past. Our whole body is a manifestation of things that we did in the past. You see? So therefore our whole physical and psychological manifestation is all simply a reaction of sin. That's why it can't bring us any happiness. The only time that we gain any happiness is because we may have done a few pious activities. And luckily we did. Otherwise we would be just suffering like anything. So therefore we can understand that happiness and distress are various types of sinful reactions. So therefore as soon as we begin devotional service, we automatically become relieved from more sinful activities than we could perform. You see, this is the power of devotional service that Lord Chaitanya has brought. It is so powerful that simply by once uttering Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, one automatically becomes free from more simple activities than you could have done in billions and billions and billions and billions of lifetimes. That's how powerful chanting Hare Krishna is. Now, you may say, that sounds very exaggerated. But at the same time, we have to accept God's word. You see, this knowledge is coming from God. And God is the one who created the entire material creation. And if He says that once chanting of His name can free you from all the reactions of all the sins that you've ever done, we have to accept it. So this is the power of chanting the name of God. But there's only one qualification which is required, and that is you chant out of love. So maybe that's the ingredient missing. But at least we can understand the potency of the holy name. 2, pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness. Why is it the beginning of all auspiciousness? You see? Again, because devotional service automatically puts one on the transcendental platform. On the transcendental platform there is nothing inauspicious. There is only the spiritual world. So therefore, Krishna consciousness is the only process which is both the means and the end. It is not a means. Devotional service is not like performing some pious activities or doing some good so as you will get some material gain or some material benefit or even some spiritual benefit. No. Devotional service, number 3, devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. It automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. So therefore you automatically start to taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Therefore Lord Chaitanya said this Chaitanya Dharma, this Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the light of all transcendental knowledge, of all transcendental bliss. So, and it gives us a taste of that nectar for which we are always anxious. So that is the real essence of Lord Chaitanya. He has brought the nectar, that nectar for which we are hankered, birth after birth. We are hankering after that nectar, and we are trying to experience that nectar, because by nature we are honeybees. We are all honeybees. Everyone sitting in this room is honeybee. You see? We are honeybee, and we want the honey. If you see honeybees, they're not interested in anything else. They want the honey. They're after the honey. We also, every living entity wants the honey. But we are trying to get the honey from the wrong places. We are going to the nettles. We are going into the garbage heap. And we are trying to suck some honey out of bags of skin and bone and pus and mucus and bile and stool. We are trying to suck some honey from there, but there's no honey. There's no honey. In this material world, everything is inferior. So therefore, inferior honey is here. Not real honey. Inferior honey. But Lord Chaitanya has brought the pot of real honey. He's brought a big, big pot. It's so big, it fills the entire creation, this pot. And he is simply calling us, come on, Jeev Jago, wake up you sleeping honeybees. You have to wake up you sleeping honeybees and jump in this pot of honey. I am already drowning. I am drowning in this honey pot. Lord Chaitanya is drowning with all of his associates. If you read Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will see he is drowning. He is drowned there. So this drowning is there because Lord Chaitanya has not come to give anything but this pure honey of Akila Rasamrita Murti, the honey of love for Krishna. Krishna is the Akila Rasamrita Murti. He is the reservoir of all Rasamrita. This Rasamrita is that he is always enjoying Amrita, nectar. Krishna is always, just like now he's with Radharani on the altar, we see he is enjoying nectar in his flute. He is playing beautiful music, and that music is so captivating that it breaks the heart of the gopis. It breaks their heart. So breaks their heart means it makes them go mad in love. When they hear the notes coming from the flute of Krishna in their heart, they go mad. They go mad. They become mad with ecstasy of love for Krishna. So similarly, this sound of the transcendental world has come down into this material world. This sound has come down in the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So therefore Lord Chaitanya has brought this nectar pot, and we can jump in this nectar pot, just like these bees. They jump in and drown. We should drown. Just like when you want to get, wasps. Sometimes you put a pot of honey and they get all sticky, isn't it? They come and they're eating the honey, they get stuck in the honey. So this is what Lord Chaitanya has done. So 4, pure devotional service is really achieved. 5, those in pure devotional service derive even the conception of liberation. And 6, pure devotional service is, and this is the most important of all, it is the only means to attract Krishna. You see? It is the only means to attract Krishna. So generally we see that in every religion the idea is to somehow capture God. We want to capture God by performing some pious activities, by gaining some knowledge, by doing various altruisms and sacrifices and various things like that. But the idea is to capture God. You can never capture God. You can never actually bring God under your subjugation. God will always be billions of miles away, inconceivable distance away. But there is one thing that does attract Krishna, and that is his love for Krishna. So this pure devotional service in love is the only thing which actually attracts Krishna. So Krishna is all attractive, but pure devotional service attracts even him. This means that pure devotional service is even transcendently stronger than Krishna himself, because it is Krishna's internal potency. And that is the point, that this transcendental Krishna consciousness is taking shelter of the internal potency. And because we have taken shelter of the internal potency, therefore this potency is very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. So this is the secret of success of spiritual life. That we are very tiny, we are automatically born into a hellish condition of life, we are deformed by this material body, by these material senses, we have no capacity to approach the absolute truth in any shape or form. But if the absolute truth descends down, as he has done in this what is called Gaudiya Madhava Vaishnava Sampradaya, then the personality of Godhead has come within this gotra, within this line, and has revealed himself and has given us the opportunity of taking direct shelter of the Lord's internal energy. So that is the unique contribution of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he has brought Goloka Prema Dana. He has brought this rasa of love down in order for us to have a taste. Because without this taste, we can never get out of this material world. So just like I was saying in the beginning of the class, that this principle of sex life is very, very difficult. Unless one is able to cope with this principle, then one cannot actually make advancement in spiritual life. So what is this principle of sex life? That should be understood. The principle of sex life is the perverted manifestation of the love that we have for Krishna. Therefore Lord Chaitanya has particularly come to show what is real sex life. You see? What is real sex life? There is real sex life and there is perverted sex life. In the material world, this sex life is manifested in the relationship between boy and girl. But in the spiritual world, the pure sex life is manifested in the relationship between the gopis and Krishna. So therefore, we should understand that if we take shelter of Krishna, then we will actually be able to enter in to this transcendental rasa of prema. This transcendental rasa of prema, of pure love for Krishna, is manifested in 5 different relationships. Of course, there is Shanta Ras, Dasya Ras, and there is Sakya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, Madhurya Ras. So Lord Chaitanya came to open that pot. That pot is the manifestation of the 5 different relationships. Of course, the particularly 4 relationships are predominantly explained by the Goswamis. And those relationships are the eternal Rasamrita Sindhu, the eternal. So when we talk about Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is the ocean of nectar of giving oneself to Krishna. In most religions, the idea of giving oneself to God is the idea of bowing down to God, isn't it? Just like Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, isn't it? So we have to stand there, Allah Akbar, Akbar Allah, isn't it? Because God is great, I should bow. This is a very coarse type of relationship with God. That God, what sort of relationship it is with anyone, where every time you see them, you got to bow down to them. There's no relationship. It is just one of fear, one of anxiety. Just like when you're bowing down, to anything, then automatically you're hoping that by the time you get up they've gone past, isn't it? Many times when people bow to a sannyasi, they're kind of hoping that when they look up, has he gone yet? Has he gone yet? So this idea of awe and reverence, this is not a very high principle of religiosity, because it is based upon certain conditions. It is based upon certain conditions which are basically phenomenal conditions. That God is very great, He creates the big universes, and He's got fireballs coming out of His eyes, and He's sitting there damnating everyone. When we commit sins, we should shake in fear, and there will be gnashing of teeth, and the hells will open up, and fire will strew out, and we'll get burnt on the legs, and burnt. But this is not idea of God. This is a very, very, what is called mixed up idea, where the idea of God, it is good, obviously, that one is approaching God, at least because one is very simple, one may be approaching God out of fear. But it's not very pleasurable to God. What sort of pleasure does fear give to God? Just like, what sort of pleasure does it give you that people are scared stiff of you? If you go to see your child and the child's practically trembling, the child's teeth are gnashing, then what sort of relationship would you feel you're having with that child? So this awe and reverence, then a little higher than that, when it becomes a little bit more intimate, then there is servitude, then the idea that I should serve God, God should be served. All the time you're thinking how to serve God. This is nice, but still there lacks some confidentiality there. There is still this idea, there's God, there's me, and there's some service. It is not very confidential, but still it is good. And then even better, when one becomes more confidential, then there is friendship. In friendship, then love can really start to gel, because in friendship there's all sorts of rasa that goes on, that would not go on in awe and reverence, or would not even go on as servitude. But in friendship, this sakya, then there is sometimes so many different reciprocations. Sometimes the friends massage each other's feet, they lie together, they play together, just like the coward boys. They get on the shoulders of Krishna, they fight Balaram, and Krishna's too slow, you have to push him. Come on, Krishna. So sometimes the friend of Krishna, he takes the dominant position. This is very pleasurable to God, because Krishna is dominating over the whole creation. So domination is not something which Krishna gets special rasa from. But he gets special rasa when he is dominated by his devotee. So when Krishna is, sometimes he's, if you like, almost not abused, but he is told what to do by his devotees. Then he gets a very extra special pleasure. And then when that friendship becomes more and more manifested, in the love becomes even deeper in this parental affection, when one feels this urgency or great need to protect Krishna, to look after Krishna, to cuddle Krishna, so many things, these are in parental. And then when the love, when the intimacy becomes even more. So we see that in the gradual progression, there is giving of services to different degrees. So in servitude, one serves Krishna in a certain way, one uses certain items, one uses particular parts of his body for serving Krishna. When one becomes friendship, then there's more intimacy in offering of one's body to Krishna. In parental affection, there is more intimacy of offering love to Krishna. And in conjugal love, there is offering of everything to Krishna. Everything to Krishna. Every single aspect of the gopis' mind, body, and everything is usable in Krishna's service. It is there for giving pleasure to Krishna. Therefore, that is why in the material world, this sexual rasa is the highest type of material rasa, because it gives pleasure to all the senses. You see, it gives pleasure to all the senses. Of course, these things cannot be understood, because in the material world, the performance of so-called sex life is the most abominable and disgusting, because we are using the most horrible materials. The material body is a disgusting, out of all, the most disgusting thing about the body is the lower genitals. So therefore, it is in the material world, we cannot try to begin to understand the different relationship of conjugal love between Krishna and the gopis. This should not be approached. But we can understand that Lord Chaitanya has come to give the absolute truth, and that absolute truth is manifested in absolute surrender unto Krishna. Absolute surrender means where we become the objects of exploitation for Krishna. In the material world, we want every object to be for our exploitation, including God. But in the spiritual science of Krishna consciousness, every single thing becomes for the pleasure of Krishna. And therefore, the different gradation of surrender is manifested in the different rasas which are given in this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So, we'll just finish off with a few things that these are verses about Lord Chaitanya's coming. Apani karumu bhakta bhavangikare apani achari bhakti siddhamu sabare. I shall accept the role of a devotee, and I shall teach devotional service by practicing it myself. O learned Brahmanas, sometimes I accept the renounced order of life to induce the fallen people of the age of Kali to accept devotional service to the Lord. In this way, assuming the sentiment of a devotee, he preached devotional service by practicing it himself. Kama prema dukkakara vibhina lakshane lodara himaya chesparupa vilakshana. Lust and love have different characteristics, just as iron and gold have different natures. The desire to gratify one's own senses is kama, lust, but the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema, or love. So that is the difference, the scientific difference of Krishna consciousness and any other activity, is that every single thought that comes out of the mind of man and woman is to satisfy oneself. And therefore every single thought that comes out of your mind is directly opposed to devotional service. So Lord Chaitanya has come to change the mentality of the conditioned souls in Kali Yuga. And that is that one simply has to understand that the desire to gratify one's own senses is called kama, or lust. But the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema, or love. So therefore, this is the esoteric secret of devotional service, that by engaging one's self in service to Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna, one automatically becomes free from any desire to enjoy in this material world. One is automatically put onto the transcendental platform of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of the ocean of pure devotion. Okay, I think we'll finish here. Maybe a little bit quick discussion. Does anyone have any challenges or points or discussion on this?
Just one question regarding the argument with denying that God exists because we have to deny him. I think that's why the argument.
God exists because we have to deny it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the thing is that, you see, the big question is there God? Now, the fact that you're asking, is there God, means there must be a God. You see? It's only, in other words, you're saying, why would you need to say, is there a God, if there wasn't a God? Answer that first. Why would you need to say, is there a God, if there wasn't one? I mean, why would it even be a discussion?
If it's something they have thought of, a concept which doesn't really exist, and maybe it's come from their imagination.
No, but since time immemorial, everyone's been talking about God. Now, why would you even need to bring the topic up if it didn't exist?
Wouldn't it be to control? Say someone, alright, you say time immemorial, but then how do you know?
No, but okay, let's look back as far back as we can go. There's been discussion about God.
Yeah.
So why is there a discussion about something which you don't need to discuss? So you can say that atheism, the reason people become so much absorbed in atheistic ideas is because they have to disprove something. The onus is not on God to prove himself. The onus is on us to prove he doesn't exist. Because God, the word God, if you take God as even an impersonal thing, the controller, then everyone knows they're being controlled, right? So the best thing to do is to eliminate that control. That's one way you could think about it. If you're being controlled by something, then you want to eliminate that control. In other words, you want to be free from that control. So therefore, you can either do it by your own strength, which is not possible. So therefore, you have to do it by philosophy. You have to philosophically do away with the concept of God. Because unless you can do that, now when we talk about doing away with God, we're talking about doing away with God's energy control. God is controlling us through his energy. So everyone is controlled. They may submit to a material sense of control, or they may submit to a spiritual sense of control, but everyone is doing one thing, and that's submitting. They're submitting. They're submitting to something. Now that submission is acceptance of God in a negative sense. But basically, the reason that people try to, if you like, eliminate the idea of God or try to dismiss the idea of God is because everyone knows that God exists. Everyone actually knows it. Everyone knows it. But the thing is that the mental denial or psychological denial of God is just an artificial imposition on the mind. It's something that we artificially convince ourselves God doesn't exist. But everyone knows they have to grow old. Everyone knows they get diseased. Everyone knows they die. Everyone ultimately knows that there is. Okay, they can say, I don't believe in God, but they believe in death. They believe in some power of some kind. They believe it. So in one sense, they're just substituting God with some other word or some other energy or some other idea. No, carry on. Sorry?
You wouldn't exactly say that death is a power. You could say that death comes to all of us. It could be an atheistic argument that he just part of something.
Yeah, but it's not only death that is more powerful than us. Every single thing in this universe is more powerful than us. So in actuality, we can if you like, deny, philosophically we can try to deny higher authority, but we are constantly being subjugated to higher authority in one shape or form or another. So it's just a matter of, like Prabhupada says, you are following one person and I'm following another. But the one thing is true about both of us, we're both followers. We're not leaders. We're not leaders. Nobody is actually independent, if you like, in this world. So without independence, you can never have freedom. You can never have freedom. So no one's free. So we're not free to acknowledge God or deny God. We're not free to do it. We're not free to pass any judgment on God. But the fact of the matter is, we like to because we feel good about it. We may feel good that we've finally been able to dismiss God by some sort of mental gymnastics or philosophical gymnastics or whatever. But in reality, everyone is subjugated to the conditions of matter. So being subjugated to the conditions of matter is acknowledging God, because you're being controlled by God's energy. So therefore, whether you accept God as the controller behind, in other words, it's like this. Prabhupada used the example. If you're getting beaten by a stick, is it the stick that's beating you or the person that's holding the stick? So all atheism is doing is saying God's a stick. Wow. So they're just getting beaten on the head with sticks. But at least all the theist is doing is saying, well, I know I'm getting beaten by sticks, but I know there's someone holding them. That's all. But whether you deny the owner of the stick, if you're getting beaten to death with a stick, whether you deny that someone's doing it and you say it's just a stick, or whether you acknowledge that someone's holding a stick and beating you to death, it's basically just the same thing in that sense. Come on, if you don't agree with that, you can argue on it.
I still don't understand why it's necessary for God to exist just on the basis that we can deny it. Because we can deny so many things, it doesn't make those things actuality.
We can deny so many things, but you can't deny anything greater than God. You see, the idea of greatness is always the factor of the discussion of God. In other words, that science is being subjugated by the greatness of phenomena, right? And therefore they can say, I don't believe in God, but I believe in phenomena. That's all they're doing. They just substitute one with the other. But they cannot deny the greatness of phenomena because they are a very tiny molecular manifestation of phenomena being subjugated by huge forces all around. So therefore the idea of denial is doesn't change anything. It just may make them feel good in their head. But it doesn't stop them getting old, getting diseased, dying, not being able to control their bodies, not being able to control their functioning, not being able to control anything. I mean, in reality, if anyone was intelligent as a scientist, he would understand his complete helplessness in this world. Whether he believes that his helplessness is caused by someone or not, at least he has to accept it, his total helplessness. Because the human body is the most pathetic thing in terms of coping with nature. You know, it's just what do you call it? We're like little insects groveling around in this huge ocean of matter, trying to establish some solidity or some permanence or some shelter of some kind.
But if they subjugate to phenomena, they're being controlled by some phenomena, they would say that doesn't prove that there's a supreme person. What does that, why does that mean?
Well, they may not accept the supreme person.
Why does that have to be omniscient, omnipotent, and
yeah.
So why does that
but the thing is that the understanding of the cause, because I mean what we're dealing with really is cause and effect, isn't it? So they say, well, I don't believe in energy, I believe in an energy. So what science has done is just basically reductionism. They have to reduce the cause down to something so either so small that you can't talk about it. All we've done is we've gone the other way. We've macrocosmically manifested it. It's so great you can't talk about it. So they've microcosmically brought him down to a singular, indescribable, indefinable, unknowable, unspeakable, untraceable, untastable, limitly ons, singular point of immense density, or whatever you want to call it. But it's basically just saying the cause of all causes is somewhere in there. And what we're saying is the cause of all causes is somewhere out there. But either way, you have to come to an unlimited point. Whether that point of unlimited source is inconceivably small or inconceivably big, it's all speculation, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe be speculation, but through that has come some result, hasn't it?
What result?
Yeah, like what? All right, I'll give you an example about the recent cloning of the animals. DNA, using DNA term. So how could, what would there be another soul that's actually gone in and God's actually, overriding the whole situation, overlooking our little scientists and just got soul in that?
No, the point is that all science are doing is manipulating an energy which already exists. They're not creating anything.
Yeah,
if they're even if they're able to put together certain already existing